naman kung sino yung iimbitahin natin. Yung mga medyo nasa abroad. So, like, a good mix of people who have, like, worked abroad. And, like, si Ranny, he's joining us. Let's follow him up. He's been working sa Hong Kong for 5 years, actually. Yeah, so, hold on. Anyway, so yun nga, Joseph, I was just telling Ian, parang basically, what we feel is parang ngayon ba lang talaga naging big yung internet in the Philippines? Like, lately lang talaga, as in this year lang talaga lahat ng tao, may YouTube, lahat ng tao, right? And talagang nag-iba yung, I wanna say, nag-iba yung guard. Parang pinag-uusapan, ano yung binili sa Lazada 99 sale eh. So,
Gano'n ka-access yung Lazada? As in, one-click shopping na rin siya. And delivery is, like, yung threshold for sa delivery is, it doesn't have to be like 2,000 pesos for minimum 5,000 pesos, for example, for delivery.
Parang may delivery fee lang, $1 usually. So usually 50 pesos yung delivery, which is really not bad, right? So parang nakuha na rin nila yung critical mass nila of like this whole thing na everyone buys from Lazada. Of course, may COVID, right? So talagang transformative actually eh. Ang kulit din ng mga ngayon eh, ng mga tao ngayon eh. Tsaka yung mga show, like yung cultural aspect niya. Like for example, si Willie Revillame, sinesponsoran siya ng Shopee. Tapos yung mga games ni Willie Revillame, like Shopee games, yung alam mo yun, yung parang sobrang kulit, sobrang laugh trip actually. So,
ano kaya yung effect niya sa, alam mo, diba, mall-going culture tayo. You know what I mean? Like, in general, like, so Ian, yung fiance ko is not from the Philippines. Okay. So, isa sa mga parang shock factors niya is, wow, talagang mall-going culture. Diba? Kasi ako yung basic argument ko, so, malamig sa mall eh, di ba? So,
right.
It's happening eh. So, as retail transitions online, I don't like how's retail adapting, how are big malls adapting?
Ikaw Ian, anong tingin mo dyan?
Ako tingin ko ang daming nagsusubok mag-adapt through online like Ace Hardware, like SM, pero yung UI nila and UX nila sobrang pangit pa. Ang bagal nila gumalaw for me. Marami sa kanila nagde-deliver na, like for Ace Hardware, I've tried once na. Mag-order ka through Viber, tapos you're just gonna pick it up sa drive-through area, sa parking area nila. So medyo nag-adapt din sila for me, pero not enough pa.
But do you think that's enough to cover yung overhead mo sa facilities where you usually would have had, you know, a tremendous amount of footprint from shoppers, di ba? I'm just kind of like thinking out loud kasi dito yung retail spaces are
matagal na, right? Oo, matagal na.
So,
yeah. Oo nga eh. Parang, if you think about it, it's going to look like Amazon talaga, pero it's gonna take a while pa. And this COVID really fast-tracked the time it's gonna take to reach the US standard, parang ganun eh.
Yeah.
At saka ang dami na Shopee and Lazada.
But how I feel is, yeah. But how I feel is gonna be different. Eh. Alam mo yun? Kasi like for example, sobrang sa Pilipino na pa rin eh. Like showbiz. Iba pa rin yung impact ng showbiz saka ng mga endorsers eh, right? So even then, parang lumipat lang sila sa Shopee tsaka sa Lazada eh. Like si Marichan, di ba? Sikat na sikat ngayon pagka Christmas season, di ba? Talaga, parang ang tanda na ng tao, pinapasayaw pa sa Shopee. Yung hayop yung mga taga-Shopee. Diba? So meron pa rin. Like, iba, I don't wanna say na parang it's gonna be exactly like Amazon, pero like, may flavor pa rin talaga yung Pinoy eh. Kasi yung mga, tsaka alam mo ba, yung hindi ginagawa sa US a lot na ginagawa ngayon na, so siguro si Joseph, hindi niya alam to. Para yung parang online tiyangge o yung online parang tawaran, parang gano'n. Parang naka-live stream yung Facebook Live, di ba? Tapos pare, magtitinda ng, yung kanina yung pinanood ko, nagtitinda ng plants, pare. Puso ngayon yun, yung mga plantita. So pare, nagtitinda lang talaga siya ng halaman. Tapos pare, mura naman, 999 pesos, 1, 2. Hey, Nick.
Hello,
Ito,
Nick.
si Nick, mukhang nasa abroad. Hey, Nick. na nakamute si Nick.
Yes, you guys.
Hey, Nick. So, si Nick is batch 2018? 2019, yeah. Kami ni Joseph, mga oldies. Pare, alam mo ba kung bakit talaga sinama ko si Joseph? Tatapatin na kita, Joseph. Pare, last time kami nagkaroon ng ganito, pare, tinatatay nila ako. Ano ito?
Dati, 2010 tayo yung pinakabata eh. Every time, usual stories ng matatandang tao. Pero dati 2010, people are shocked. 2010? Tangina. Oh, pwede ba tayo magmura dito? Anyway.
Right. It's fine. Right. Yeah. So let's wait for Ranny tapos we can start na siguro. Like, onting pakilala lang, onting warm up lang. And like, si Chabs, she's gonna be late, so we're just gonna let her join. Hey, Ranny, can you hear us?
I don't see Ranny yet. Can you make me host later, Ian? Kasi parang there's only one host lang yata eh.
Right. So I'm gonna make you host. Yeah.
So I'll be the one
to host
to
ka na,
accept
Ian. You can siguro rename. Yeah, maybe you can rename everyone muna and put their batches para lang may Yeah.
Alright.
Cool. Hey, Ranny, kumusta? Hello.
Ano batch mo, Nick?
Nakamute. Kami ni Joseph 2010, si Ranny 2011.
Hello?
Yun. Hey, Ranny.
Wow, professional studio,
Oo, may #production value, nakakaya naman sa inyo. Right. Sige, so siguro sound check lang. Okay naman kayo, Ranny, Joseph.
Yeah, malinaw naman on my side.
Okay. Ranny, balita. I haven't talked to him forever, pare.
Siguro lang,
wait, sino yung Joseph?
Si Joseph. Joseph here.
Nakita ko lang kasi si Ian eh. Wait, change ko.
Naka-phone ka. Right. Naka-phone ka. Sige. Yeah. So just to give you guys like a 1-minute background on why we started doing this, and parang we have a commitment, me and Ian Kinpin right here, to do this for at least, I want to say 100 episodes, Ian? That's our commitment.
Yeah. Sure, 1,000.
So si Ian, si 1,000. Si Ian kasi, he's doing support for today. So like, talaga, may #production value naman kami. So he's gonna do fact checking and like, if you need some slides pulled up, he'll do it for you guys, and parang we can share the screen, right? So basically, just wanted to share with you guys like why we're doing this. Basically, this is a love letter for Ateneo students, especially BCG students, right? First, right? So swerte na lang. Hey, Chiara. Swerte na lang if makita to ng mga ibang alumni, right? They're not really the focus right now. And it's a love letter because we want to help them out, like in time during graduation, and I want to say like after graduate, like just that transition, that parang confusion, and that moment in time na parang you feel so uncertain. Pero actually, it's the best like moment in time. Like looking back, it's the best moment in time to really parang take root and to really move forward, right? So parang to be really inspired and motivated, right? And I just think that parang in our days, we didn't have the internet na as pervasive as now. So we didn't have like just switch on a YouTube channel and watch these old guys talk about experiences, right? So yeah, and the format is basically we do like an hour to 2 hours of like just talking, like a few guests. Tapos yan, as you can see, si Chiara is from 2020, si Nick is from 2019, Joseph is from 2010, I'm from 2010, and Ranny, our guest of honor, is from 2011, right? So very broad din yung guesting batches natin para rin may balance, right? So sige. Siguro let's do one round of introductions muna. Like just say something about yourself. What you remember was your like one of your best moments in the Ateneo siguro para may backstory. Sige. Oh, who wants to go first? Maybe Chiara can go first because she's late.
Okay. Sorry. Hi. Oh, but I can only stay until 8:30.
Yeah, it's all right.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, hi, I'm Chiara Siochi. I was the president of BCG last year. I graduated 2020. I guess one of my best moments in the Ateneo. I'd have to say joining BCG because I can actually still remember the day and like what I was doing, how it happened, everything like that. And I didn't even expect to join BCG. It's not like I researched about BCG prior to that. It's just because I talked to the people who were in the booth. I wanted to try something new. I wanted to challenge myself as well, and so I signed up. And also, just a little backstory, because I'm AB Comm, and I wasn't very business minded, and I didn't think that I would join like a consulting org. So it was very surprising, and that's one of my best memories from Ateneo. That's me.
Right. Sige, how about Nick? In order of ano to?
Sige.
Chronological order.
Okay. So I'm Nick Rueda. I was the president in 2019, so that was about 2 years ago na. Currently, I'm a master's student in the States. Planning to work here after. And then probably my best moment in college or in Ateneo has something to do with BCG, which was accreditation. So that whole ceremony, the whole awarding, that was very, very nice. And it's still one of my most treasured memories to this day.
Yeah. So Nick and I actually worked in the past before. So we did a stint in Food Panda. Pero Nick is actually very important actually because he was the one who got the org accredited, right? So from 2010 to 2019, so a long time coming, right? Pero yeah, that was the finish line, and it was a very happy day for everyone, right? So sige. And next, Ranny.
Hi, so I'm Ranny. I think I was president in 2011. Most fondest memory, I would say, is yung TNT. Para maiba naman, hindi necessarily BCG. Yung reason is it was something new, yung first time of an adventure. And then mamaya I'll talk more about by yung theme, which is today's theme of the talk, is pursuing abroad. And the reason why it's memorable is you get to meet so many new faces, different backgrounds, and just you're just filled with enthusiasm.
Right. Okay. Sige. And last, we have Joseph. Yeah, our fourth guest for today.
Joseph Castro, 2010. Probably for me, the best part of being in Ateneo was really I don't know if this is even a word. You demythologize things as you go. So Denver and I were from the province. So to me, starting in Ateneo was demythologizing people from Manila and seeing like, okay, how can I compete in this new level? And for me, post JTA, that's how Denver and I started BCG. Well, it was mostly Denver, but just realizing that there's many things that the West has, if you will, that we could leverage, bring to the Philippines and scale it moving forward. And to me, it's been a constant theme of, trying to bridge that gap. And that's why I'm hoping to be part of this panel and contribute in a meaningful way to that as well. I'm also based in the States, currently a graduate student, 9 years later, finally. So I took the route where I'd have no student debt. So I can take whatever job I want after. So, yeah, happy to be here. Enjoyed my time in Ateneo, obviously. And I'm happy to hear that BCG, the people that, got it certified or accredited rather are here. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
Looking back.
Yep. Yeah. So, sige. Siguro let's start with Joseph, right? Since I keep on saying and telling like the kids, right, that the world was a very different place back in 2010, right? Siguro, could you walk us through like what was the world like back then? What things were different and what things were more or less the same, right, for like a graduating student from the Ateneo?
Sure. So kind of on the same line, I'm really curious how people of 2020 feel, diba? Pero they have this idea of humans don't really feel speed, you feel velocity. right? In terms of your trajectory, parang what your outlook of the future is like. I remember in 2010, my personal outlook of the future is pretty bright. I thought, things. I mean, there was a big recession in 2008 affected Asia at that time as well. Pero in terms of job prospects, there were a lot of things available. Now, I have to say about my vantage point wasn't the same as a lot of people because I had my eyes on immigrating right after 2010. But I do have to say, there were a lot of opportunities. As I said, fresh off JTA, you just kind of see things that are going on outside of the Philippines, and they're like, okay, what can we do to bring that here? Or what are the things that we could do here? Parang, to me, it was really an eye opener. And wow, there's nothing that special about people outside this country. So there's things that we could do it here as well and make it happen. So to me, that's one thing for sure in 2010. And I guess on a small scale, I don't know, the speed of technology it's not this fast. No, I don't look at us all over the world right now talking in real time. I guess you already had that back then, but it's not at the same level. So that's pretty impressive, I think.
So what you felt was like the velocity and like just general speed of how things were changing, but at the same time, you also felt na parang the opportunity was there. Like coming in 2010, 2011. Exactly. Hey, how about you, Ranny? Did you feel like the same way? Na parang like just the opportunities were just there back then?
No, I think I would echo that part where 2008, there was that financial crisis, and 2010, 2011, I'd say is the point where things were starting to get better. So I do think there were more opportunities in terms of jobs, or even when you try to pursue, because after 1 year working, I actually pursued a postgraduate immediately, and tried to get scholarships because I didn't want to also have student debt, but more cheap as I wanted someone else to pay for it. not as hardworking as Joseph.
Family ba yun? Family?
No, so I actually got full scholarship.
You did. Right, full
Yeah.
scholarship. Good for you, man.
Yeah,
Good for you.
so it was weird because I didn't want to pay for it. I don't also wanted to rely on parents, so it was like where I gambled. Anyway, like back then, because everything was recovering economically, there was also a lot of international programs to help people from third world developing countries such as Philippines to get quote unquote first world education, and that later just demystified as I would say from a content perspective could easily be replicated in Philippines, but I feel like the experience of actually just uprooting yourself and going to somewhere else and meeting people and seeing that they're pretty much the same as you is the true value of that. So yes, I think before there were a lot more opportunities compared to specifically now where we are actually hearing a lot more negative news on job availability.
Right. Before I go to Chiara, right, I just wanted to very quickly tell Nick and Ranny. I think you guys went to the same post-grad, right? So, Ranny, you went to Hult, right?
Yep.
Yep. And Nick as well. Are you currently, or like, what's the
So
academe situation, Nick?
I'm on my dual degree this year at Hult. Yeah, so that's pretty. I'm taking up business analytics, and then my first degree was international business.
Right. So later we can get into your like Hult stories, right? Because actually that school has made a lot of sort of gains as far as like Filipino graduates are concerned, right? So parang it has been really building its own brand and its own presence like locally, right? Pero sige, just to go circle back on the opportunity bit, right? So Chiara, do you also feel the same way? Na parang kasi even back in 2010, 2011, we felt na parang there was opportunity and it's parang like, the world's picking up, there's complexity and speed and all that, right? But how about you? How do you feel like? This is fresh grad basically.
Well, okay, so before the pandemic hit, like I had I had so many plans, or I already knew what I wanted to do. Like by March or by May, I know I'd go here, go there, and then by June or July or August or whatever, I'd start working. But wow, all those plans just went out the drain, down the drain, and I really feel like it's because before there were so many opportunities. They were like endless. You could do whatever, but being a fresh grad, like we didn't even get the proper ceremony or anything like that. Um, I guess it was just a bit frustrating because like my plans didn't go my way also, and you kind of just had to figure out what's now, like what do you do now, like what's next for you. You had to just figure it out as I had to figure it out as I went. So like right now I'm in an apprenticeship. So I'm not full-time yet also because it's really, really hard to find a job. A handful of my friends have jobs now, but then like for me, since I'm a communication student, I would apply to PR firms and stuff like that. But then they would tell me that, oh, we'll be hiring in January next year pa. So there's just a lot of like rejection also there, which also like pushed me to find new things to do. Because even if like it's very hard right now, right? But um, it pushed me to find other things. It challenged me also because like right now I have like a social enterprise business with my friend that I started during the pandemic. And I don't think I would have started that if things went normally. So yeah, that like things really, really changed because of this pandemic. Plans change and also people change. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Um, there's something that you mentioned, like just posing the general question, what's next, right? And I
Yeah.
want to do a round table of like how everyone wrestles with the question na ganun, like what's next, right? So for example, for Nick, this is a very fairly recent. He questions, right? After you graduate, there's like graduation, what's next? And then after you did your stint, Nick, the what's next was actually going to this prestigious school, right? So how did you wrestle with those questions? What's next? What's next?
Well, for me, despite the pandemic, I've always wanted to stay like be planning 5 years ahead where I want to be and where I see myself. Fortunately, the pandemic didn't really affect my decision, so I've always wanted to go to grad school. Um, and then I wasn't supposed to take a second degree. I was only thinking about it, but because of the pandemic, I feel like that really pushed me to take that second degree because I felt like that I didn't want to enter the job market just yet with the pandemic at its peak. And so um, for me, it's really just about projecting yourself 3 to 5 years into the future, thinking about what you want to do and where you see yourself, and then always having contingencies. Like um, the pandemic, I'm sure affected a lot of our plans, and um, there's always like a backup plan that you should have to get you in that same spot where you want to be. So
Right.
yeah, for me, it's really just about planning.
Yeah. And how about for Ranny, right? I wanted Ranny and then Joseph, right? So since we have a little bit, just a little bit more experience, than everyone else in this call, how do you guys wrestle yung questions na ganun, like what's next? Maybe you can talk a bit like how you approach those things before when you were like a bit younger, I want to say, and then now, like how do you answer those questions, like what's next, what's next?
Sure. Well, I guess for me, the way I answer it before now, how I answer it now is, I think fundamentally the same. Like similar to what Nick said, it is what's your goals, reviewing where you want to be, uh, even how arbitrary that may be. Maybe industry, maybe location, and then targeting it. The high level target goals are there, and the day-to-day plans is basically just adopted based on the situation that you're currently in. And I
Yeah.
think even to date, it's still the same how I approach it. uh, I mean, like, for example, I actually lost my job in February due to COVID, like a lot of cuts, and then now I've actually recently found new work. But that in itself would just be like a reaction to the situation, and then rebase yourselves and then continue on and say, okay, Is the goal still achievable within the time frame? No. Then what do you adopt? Or maybe even more fundamental, from time to time, where you have to revisit site, is it still what I want to do? Or
Right.
pivot to that. And
Yeah.
that's what I've been doing in the I guess in while looking for work, and just reevaluate that.
Ranny, you're still based in Hong Kong, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you've been based there, and like just talk us through like how many jobs have you held? How many companies? Like what was like the Hong Kong experience? Past 5, 6 years already?
6 years, actually 6 years. In terms of number of jobs, actually, hindi ganun karami. Basically, since I went to Hong Kong, I've only been with KPMG as a management consultant, and tapos like basically went up the ranks. And then now decided to be more focused on financial services, so joining a bank.
Right.
Two.
Right.
Pero
I mean,
like yung for those who have experience in consulting, and I think na kaya kayo sumali sa Blue Consulting Group, di ba? The projects, the variety of projects is kind of like each project is a different company or job where you learn again the basics. So even if I did stay with just KPMG, there's still a lot of that diversity of the work.
right. I see. So similar kayo ni Nick basically, right? So you have like a 5-year plan, you have a model, na parang long-term model, and then you shoot for it, but you have some contingencies and you have some backup plans to keep on still pushing forward toward that goal, right? And you think of it na parang, I have a goal that doesn't change, and like no matter what challenges come, right, you can always pivot, right? So that's the perspective.
Yeah.
Sige. How about si Joseph? How do you wrestle with questions na ganun? Like, what's next? How do you decide what's next? I know you're getting married as well, right? So parang that's also within the context of what's next.
Yeah. I just kind of wanted to mention this. When I was younger, I think I'd be on the same mentality of 5-year plan, 10-year plan. Especially when I first moved to the United States, I had some very well detailed plans on where I wanted to be. Diba? Two things I want to say on that is number one, the one mistake you could make as a young person in 2010 or 2020, I should say, wow, is don't get caught up between extreme optimism or extreme pessimism. In terms of, I'm a pessimist by heart. Pero on the one hand, the thing with 5-year plans is it kind of operates under the assumption that there will be something going on in 5 years. Diba? It's kind of like one of the big lies I think we all bought in is, things have a cycle. Things are gonna go up and down on their own. I don't think that happens. It's a function of what everyone does to make that happen. But at the same time, you don't want to be on the other end where you're thinking 2020 pandemic, everything, the world's on fire and nothing's going to happen. We're all doomed. Don't get caught up on that either. So to me, what I'm trying to get at is always have your find your place between those two extremes and make things happen in your present, and hopefully kind of build things from there. And don't be married to whatever you think whatever the original plan is. So I'm a bit of a contrarian on that end as well, but I'm also not so I'm in law school. I'm not in business school. I've kind of like veered away from that direction. But what I'm trying to say is you have to find those opportunities as you go, and always stay equipped on updating your skills. But at the same time, I think, and this is particularly true if you're working abroad, I would say, is whatever preconceived notions you have, preconceived notions of prestige, of how things were supposed to turn out, you have to let those go in order to be flexible and hang on into new opportunities. So it's kind of like a pretty general answer, but that's where I'm leaning right now.
Yeah. But did like, just show of hands, right? Did you guys consider like working abroad as a goal? Right? Was it like a specific, let's say, whether that's a 5-year goal, 3-year goal, or whatever goal, right? Did you really intend to just set out for yourself na parang, you know what, one day I'm gonna work elsewhere, right? I'm gonna work abroad. Ako kasi yes right? So just show of hands, right? Sino yung mga talagang they planned it. So Chiara plans it, right? So obviously she just graduated but she's looking toward that. How about the others? No? No? Mga others hindi, right? I see. Sige. And the reason why I ask that, right, is related to the conversation around whether that's a goal or not a goal, right? Ako kasi, I intended to work abroad, right, as an expat, right? And I thought I was gonna do that like for the rest of my life. Parang ganun. I thought na parang, it's so glamorous, jet setter ka, right? And then parang I'm gonna do this for the rest of your life, right? So I did that for a while, right, with like an international consulting, like Accenture Consulting, right? Tapos like it was fun at the start, right? Living away from family and like living in a hotel and like jet setter life, like just one airport after the other, right? But after a while, parang I really felt na parang it wasn't for me. Parang ganun, parang it didn't take me long to realize na parang having achieved that goal, right? Na parang it wasn't for me. Parang ganun, right? I want to go back to Joseph and Ranny ulit, right, before I go to Nick and Chiara. Have you ever had those instances na parang like you wanted something and then when you got it, parang you had a change of heart, right? So let's start with your let's say plans going abroad, working abroad, like how did that change for you? Or are you still loving it? Like what's your perspective around that?
Okay, hello?
Sige, Randy.
Yeah. Parang
Yeah,
binubuli
go
mo
ahead.
kami ni Joseph, Ang dami, like kami yung...
Hindi naman.
Kidding.
Hindi naman. It's, yeah.
Well, definitely, I would say na may na-experience ko naman yun na like, you think na that's what you wanted, then you get it, and then you realize, maybe this is not for me, then you pivot and change. I think I experienced that a bit earlier. I was really interested in technology. So my first job was actually Hewlett Packard. Pero it was super tech, like down coding, shell scripts, Unix, Linux coding. Tapos sabi ko, yeah, it's not for me. Tapos mas na-enjoy ko yung experience from school on yung high-level management consulting where iniis mo sa how do you deliver this, how do you position it. That's why I made a choice to reinvest in myself, take a postgraduate degree, and since I wanted consulting, not necessarily abroad. I mean, to answer your earlier question, like, did I immediately aim and perceive working abroad? Not immediately. Pero the more exposed I got, the more interested I became.
Yeah.
Tapos there was of course a desire to see how far can I go, how competitive. Like I want to compete with the best in the industry, beat in the
like
top
global
markets.
stage, right?
Yeah, global stage, and that drive and desire just led to one thing to another. Like what Joseph said, right? And I would like to clarify on those like 5-year, 10-year plan. I mean, it's always good to have direction, but it's not as if that's a never-ending goal. And that's why I said like it should be high level enough. It could be as simple as what is the lifestyle that you want for you to have and for you to maintain, and then everything else is, well, what kind of opportunities can you get, what things are you good at, what's happening in the market, then adapt. But then have that a bit more qualitative goal that's can be achieved regardless of those, to give you that sense of why you're doing certain things. Because if you don't have that, because like I'm not sure with all of you guys, yung point of work. I mean, gusto natin lahat ng high-paying job, top in our profession. Pero to what point? It can be because, baka I guess kay Joseph, start a family, magkaanak. Now, saan niya gusto i-raise yung pamilya niya? It would be sa US, then what schools, and then everything will be driven by that, let's say, financial goal or maybe that lifestyle goal for him. Yep.
Yeah. Sige. Hey, Joseph, do we still have you?
Yeah, sorry, what was the underlying question again? I was so lost in Ranny said parang general life advice. I was kind of just listening to that. What was your underlying question?
Yep. We were just asking, like, have there been any instances where you have a change of heart, and how do you wrestle with those, those kinds of situations?
Yeah, I actually have I think a good answer for that. I am personally not very talented. I'm not particularly intelligent or, I'm decently hardworking, but I'm not an extreme on that either. But I think one of the things that I find, I think I pride myself on is I'm very adaptable. I have a set of values that I non-negotiables. But from that end, if I find myself in a particular industry, in particular situation in life, I kind of just adjust from that point onwards. And I don't even know if this is a good piece of advice to be telling people. But at the same time, like I think what I'm trying to express is like at least for me, it's been the plan wasn't to go abroad. I kind of just went with my parents and then try this out for a year. And then I didn't want to come back a year later back to the Philippines and had nothing made for myself.
Right.
And then now I'm like 10 years later, I'm still here. I did a 8-year stint around the world as well. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at is have those non-negotiables, have it defined. I knew I wanted to go back to school. I knew I wanted to have enough time to really pursue my passions outside of just a career, if you will. And then kind of like tailor it from there and fine tune it. Because especially right now, I'm in the legal profession. There's a certain almost formulaic way. Things, okay, after this, I have to do a clerkship. I have to work with a judge for a year. You work with a big firm, and then you end up with a U.S. Attorney's office, or if you want to be in business, you do an internship with them. But at the same time, I find myself like you have to ask yourself, is that really what you want, or are you doing it just because everyone is gravitated to that? So I think you really have to parse what's important to you and adapt your lifestyle to that. That's I just kind of like circling back to what Ranny said is like, what is the lifestyle that you want, and reconcile that with things that the opportunities that are available, and make sure that you're still doing something that's relevant to your soul, because otherwise, then what's the point? I think you're gonna find yourself burning out pretty soon.
Yeah. So parang if you want something, right, it doesn't have to be like this grand thing, right? But you should be willing to pay the price for it, right? You should be willing to do the extra mile and work hard for it, right? And it doesn't mean that parang it has to be like you become president of the Philippines, right? Pero like whether those are lifestyle goals or what, right? Sige. So
And if
let's
Ember,
talk to like okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying another thing I want to say is very important is delayed gratification. And I think Filipinos we're pretty good at that. But I remember in 2011, 2012, I graduated from an elite university in the Philippines, high level in my class, and then I found myself mopping floors, in 2012, and kind of like thinking, wow, I'm like I'm working for bosses that I know I can do this job better than you, but I'm in this position because I'm an immigrant. I kind of had that thing. But you just have to keep eyes on the prize. Get over your own elitism, if you will. That sometimes is kind of our downfall. And then a few years later, like looking back, I mean, now I can laugh at that, and I'm now in a good position to leverage my skill set that I knew I had even in 2011, 2012. Right. Just like kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah. So Nick naman is in a like I want to say a bit different situation because Nick naman is studying abroad, right? Parang are you, Nick, getting like what you're expecting? Like, so obviously it was your objective to study abroad, otherwise, right, you wouldn't be there. But right now, having been doing it for a few months, right, was it exactly what you wanted? Was it more? Was it less? Or like, do you think it met your expectation?
Mm-hmm. So for me, it wasn't a clear goal to study abroad yet. I just wanted to clear that out. My main goal really was to be able to make enough in 3 to 5 years where I can support myself and support my grandmother and my mom. So very family oriented goal. And at the time, even months before deciding to move, I was still doing interviews in the Philippines until my dad, gave me the suggestion, and also been something I've been considering. And he said he'd help me out with it, to study abroad. And so I found myself here already in Boston. And so to answer your question, after a few months, um, yeah, I think it's what I've expected it to be. Um, my goal from taking masters is to find a job here eventually. And I think so far my school is helping me do that with all the career services. In terms of education, it's a lot of it, especially for my first degree stuff, I've already learned from Ateneo, except it's made sharper. I've mastered it more, like economics, finance, that kind of stuff. And then this next degree I'm taking is coding, so it's something completely new to me. But I also have friends who don't see it that way, where they come here and they're like, oh, this is stuff that I don't need to learn, or stuff that I already know. Why am I here? Which is why I think it's important, if you decide to study abroad specifically, that you have a specific goal in mind. For me, don't just study abroad to study abroad to just do something different, but you really have a specific goal. Is it to learn something specific? Is it to work in that country after? Is it to make connections? Because if you're not working towards that goal while you're having your education, I feel like you're gonna find it pointless, or you're not gonna see the meaning in it. So for me, because I have that goal of working here, and I feel like they're helping me do that, then I really feel like it's worth my money.
Yeah. You said a beautiful thing there, Nick, na parang if it's not clear for you, like why the hell are you doing it, right? So parang obviously it won't meet your expectation if your expectation is not clear, right? So I thought that was a very beautiful thing that you said.
Yeah.
Siguro si Chiara, since I think she has to go soon, I'm gonna let her ask like everyone else, siguro, like if she has some burning questions about this whole topic, like work abroad, not work abroad, and like, or just generally, right? This whole, first year of college, and you're out in this unstructured, fast world, right? So Chiara, do you have any burning questions for the rest of the crew here?
I just want to know, like, what's the best part about working or studying abroad? Like, why should people do it? Why are you doing it? And yeah, so what's the best part?
For me, like from a fresh grad perspective, I think a lot of us in Ateneo are very sheltered. And even for people who think they're not sheltered, in some aspect or another, they're sheltered. So going abroad, especially if you're living alone, forces you to grow up. What's that?
I think he's lagging. Just carry on.
Okay, yeah. So I think being abroad really forces you to grow up and mature in multiple aspects, not only learning how to support yourself in terms of cooking, cleaning, everything like that, but human interaction, being able to talk to different people, not just other people from private schools or stuff like that. So yeah, I think you really gain a broad range of skills outside of your normal education, at least for me.
Well, if I could add, similar to what he mentioned, it would also help you to go out of your shell, meeting different cultures and having a better understanding of their own background. I mean, we all have stereotypes of every other country, but then when you actually meet a person from that country and say, "Ah, that's actually not very true," or "Oh wow, yeah, that is very true," and maybe that could give you further insights as to why is that the case, why is that the stereotype, and making great friends and sharing stories, understanding different train of thoughts of what can work and not work, and also just broaden your mind.
Yeah, I agree. Both great points. Just to add maybe like a third layer to that is, and I'm not trying to give like a history lesson here, pero I don't remember like that generation of Ilustrados, right? Rizal and crew, Luna, everyone else that went to Spain after spending a while there, went back to the Philippines, brought those ideals, and kind of like started the revolution, if you will, or however you want to phrase that. But what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to get at is, I think the more time you spent abroad, and to me, it's been almost 10 years since I immigrated, and kind of just visited every few years to the Philippines. Is you appreciate more things about yourself. You find the faults of your own culture, but at the same time, you also kind of, to me, one of the things that in the States right now, it's really fashionable, at least. I think parang this racial divide and economic depression, and people are just miserable and like no sense of hope. And I think that one of the things that Filipino culture is good at, and it might be our own fault, I mean, might be our own downfall as well, is we're a lot more grateful people, I think. And in some ways that speaks to mental toughness, resiliency, and the ability to thrive even in a bad situation. Like you know that you'll move past that. There's gonna be a way tomorrow. Diba? Parang, there's always going to be. You'll find a way around it. It's all exaggerated. People here love the attention of news clips. Na parang the world is ending, everything's on fire. No, maybe not. But what does that matter to you? Like, what can you do moving forward? And you've seen worse things in the past, and you could pursue better things for you moving forward. So that's my 2 cents on that.
All right. So I'll take over for now, since alam nyo na may internet dito sa Filipinas, #PLDT, and the others. Chiara, do you have to go? Do you have to go ba? So
Yeah, I have to
all right.
go.
So goodbye, Chiara. It was nice talking to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Nice talking to you guys.
Nice talking to you.
Bye.
So
Thank you.
bye, Chiara. Take care. So hello guys, just for the viewers and listeners, I'm the co-host of Ian. Actually, dapat si Chabs, pero she's not available right now. So I'll take over right now kasi there's some technical issues. Siguro, I think one point na nabanggit ni Joseph would be yung may parang racial divide. I do have cousins, I do have relatives in the States also. So I'd like to talk more about paano yung naging experience nyo na pagiging Pinoy sa ibang bansa. So maybe we could start with Nick bilang the youngest of all.
Grabe, I don't know how to answer that question actually. Experience of, well, at least in the Northeast, or sorry, not, I don't want to generalize, but at least in Boston, parang I don't know, there's not as many Filipinos around as you would see if you were in. So I visit California and Florida a lot because I have family there, but for me there's not as much of a community here as there is in other states. And even like if you wanted to find the Filipino store, closest thing you could find is maybe just another Asian store with very select Filipino goods inside. But yeah, being a Filipino in another country, I feel like at least for me, I did not have to do that much of an adjustment in terms of social skills. I don't know if this is the same for most Filipinos, but I think we're very sociable people. And I think we're very friendly and adaptable. So at least in that aspect of socializing and networking, it was much easier for me because I was able to just be very open with people. And I think that's a very iconic trait. Yeah, so I don't really know how to answer that, but yun, that's basically my experience.
Yeah, that's good. So parang on your point of view na hindi naman ganun kalaki yung nafe-feel mong racial divide, which is a good thing, especially you're in school right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I said something earlier pala, about all of us having stereotypes, and I think meeting people, especially from international backgrounds from different countries, it really breaks all your preconceived notions of what what people are like from specific areas. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think there's less of a racial divide.
Yeah, that's good. How about you, Joseph and Ranny? Joseph first. How was your experience?
Sure. So like maybe Nick would and I would have more similar experiences, being based in the United States. Quick answer on that is I think the less of an attention you pay to it,
Mm-hmm.
the better it is for you. While at the same time still being realistic, while at the same time taking advantage of opportunities where they are. So kind of like just like my general example is on a macro level, I have a lot of beef politically with what's going on between the U.S. and China and the Philippines. But at the same time, if you have a Chinese colleague, I don't know if that's something that you need to focus on, or like, does that really matter on a personal level? And like to me, like my best friend in the world, I was one of his, groomsmen for his wedding. It's my Filipino Chinese friend from Ateneo. So like you have to separate the individual from the political implications of race or anything like that. That's number one. Number two, I would really encourage. But the second thing I would say is while you underplay that, and I think that's a common story from immigrants or usually it's the second, third generation, Filipino American communities or Filipino whatever communities that are more that really have that stronger debate. Pero what I would say is,
correct.
On the other end is if there are opportunities out there where you need to really hone that in terms of education or places that are seeking quote unquote diversity in the workforce. I'm not trying to like turn you guys into cynics, but grab into that, leverage what you have, and make sure to take advantage of it. Exploit that opportunity if it's there for your taking. So don't be afraid to play that card if you need to. Just because everyone else is doing it, you need to do it as well. Or if you can't, I mean, if you don't engage in that, I think that'll be to your disadvantage. So
yeah, all right. If you think about it nga, parang especially us Filipinos, hindi naman tayo ganun ka maselan per se. Parang we get to be able to relate to a lot of people. Like for me, for instance, I'm Chinese. I come from a Chiang Kai-shek College in high school, which is sobrang Chinese. Sabi nga, legit Chinese talaga, authentic. Sabi nga nila, laging gine-joke sa college. Parang going into college, culture shock din. Kasi ang daming, yun nga, puro iba na yung culture and everything. Pero you get to adapt easily. And I think that's one thing that Ateneo teaches us. How about you, Rani pala? What do you think? What do you think of this topic?
Well, I mean, to answer your original question, my personal experience about it. Well, I'll answer in two parts. At least one is in terms of yung experience on the day-to-day, food, etc. I guess in Hong Kong, it's a bit easily available. May mga Filipino shops naman, merong Filipino restaurants, so madali lang yung food aspect, right? On yung people interaction side, to be honest, hindi ko ganon like pinay attention, like hindi siya lagi nasa isip ko. So for me, pag may namita akong bagong tao or someone, yung focus is with the person.
Okay.
Pero from time to time, yung aspect of the Pinoy will come out from a question such as, I am the go-to person of anyone who wants to go to Philippines, which is the good beaches to go there. What are your warnings? Blah, blah. Or any general advice about Asia, or if they're just curious about Philippines, then that's the only time that I do really see it. So I think that fairly normal. So nothing really special.
One of the just quick side story. One of the things that I don't like when you work with, like, let's say, expats, or when you are working with a Filipino team abroad, tapos tatanungin ng mga foreigners, so what do we eat when you're Philippines? It's either balut or Jollibee, right? So parang I'm pretty sure there are other like Filipino dishes the better than balut or Jollibee, right? But like laging ganun, di ba?
So I want to put the blame on the Filipino Americans on that. Pero like one of the things that really like one of my biggest frustrations is parang naging joke yung balut, di ba? Because like I remember growing up, like I'm telling my friends here na Like balut isn't like a pare let's get crazy tonight, let's get balut for lunch. Like parang sabi ko, wala naman kasing Uber Eats sa amin noon, di ba? Parang gutom ka, gabi, may nagdito na ng balot. Ayun, parang it's just a snack. Now, you made a joke out of it. And to me, that's the frustrating part. It's, like, we really need to do a better job of kind of like rehabilitating that, okay, now we captured their attention. What do we do moving forward to kind of like introduce them to other great things that we really do have?
Right.
Yeah, Ian, we will just talk about parang are there racial divides in the when you work abroad or when you study abroad, and parang the collective answer was no, basically. And we as Filipinos are very adaptable, and as Athenians as well. So yeah, I'll give back the mic to you.
Yeah, sige. Actually, Ian, you're doing a better job at hosting than I was. And then sorry for that. Sorry for that technical difficulty, right? Sige. The next question is, we have some new guests pala here, right? The next question I wanted to ask is, when you work abroad, right? When you have like a position abroad, right? Do you have also at the back of your head parang like, I'm planning for a homecoming, or like parang eventually I'm gonna retire in the Philippines, or parang what's that thought process like for you guys?
I want to let Joseph answer first. He's the one getting married.
Sige.
Well, thanks for that, Ranny. And this is where I don't think this advice is very relatable. Pero once you get married, it becomes a two-person decision, if you will, diba? So now, especially for me and my future wife is not from the same culture. Now you're looking into the moving parts, are multiplied. For me, I kind of reject the notion of to me to I don't know. I don't mean to get too philosophical about it, but there's something almost colonial about the idea of a lot of people from the first world nations na, we'll retire somewhere in like a third world country. Our money will do much better over there. I kind of have like a fundamental problem with that. But anyway, on the realistic side of it is the Philippines has changed so much in the past 10 years. As an outsider lang, as someone that's been visiting every 2 years. So I come from a small town called Santa Rita, Pampanga, which probably a lot of you probably don't even know about outside of Denver. But we have it blows my mind na may Italian restaurant, may Korean restaurant in this really small town. So things are changing so fast. I don't even know what things will be like when it's our time to retire, if you will. I don't even know what that's going to be like. So I maybe I'm a little naive. I haven't really thought about that too much. I'm just trying to build as big of a nest as possible. Parang, but I don't know. I'm not a good person to answer that.
Ikaw, Ranny, do you have that at the back of your mind? Parang, do you have a grand plan of coming home and?
Well, wala namang grand plan. Basically taking it as we go. I mean, to echo Joseph, I'm actually married to someone who's not from the same culture. So it is a conversation. Right now, may plans kami to try to go somewhere, Canada actually. Because right now, Hong Kong security law, it is getting chaotic. There is more instability now than before. So taking it as a go and see what happens when it's that time, when it's within the horizon, because it can drastically change.
Right. Yeah, so the situation is a bit different than right from Hong Kong. But it's interesting na parang you don't plan to go back to the Philippines, right? There's another adventure for you guys, right? So that's interesting. We do know some people na parang their plan is like work a few years here, tapos I'm gonna go back to the Philippines and continue my professional career there, right? I have worked with so many professionals in the Philippines that done exactly that. Parang they would do, a few years abroad, right? And then, very intentionally come home and continue the rest of their career here. Parang they just want to try, right? So they just want to experience it, right? Or like resume type of a situation na parang you did some expat stints abroad, right? So again, as long as you're planning for it and you're intentional, diba? Parang if that's the design you want out of your life, diba? You can have it, you can do it, right? Sige.
Well, I guess just to clarify, it's not na hindi naman we're not open to the Philippines, and I don't think Joseph was also saying na not considering. It's more of at this point we're just taking it as it goes. It's hard to say what's happening, and since it is
Right.
a two-person conversation, it's not as if we can have our own grand plans now, not consider our partner's thoughts and feelings, and then have that issue down the road. It's basically, well, where are the opportunities right now? Where can you have that life that you enjoy, wherever that may be? It can be Philippines. I guess for Joseph and myself, it's not Philippines now. I don't know if it will. It might. It's not yet a done decision. Something to look down later in the road and see, well, what are the options and what is it that both me and my partner or Joseph and his partner would enjoy.
Hmm. Yeah. So, yeah. So Joseph, still no answer on the on the
No, not necessarily. I'm with Ranny on that, and I also don't want to. I know we're talking about being abroad here, but it's not like there's no adventure back home then, diba?
yeah,
And like Denver and I have had this conversation a lot when he would every now and then jokingly tell me, well, you have to do your own dishes today, or you have to do you have to do your own laundry today. Pero parang kind of like if you need to find whatever. Again, to me, I'm a big believer. What's relevant to your soul, you have to pursue it. So to me, it's a question of like going to the Philippines. It's going to be a function of, okay, what's going to be the exciting thing for me to do back home? Like what's going to be the next step? And there's a few scenarios I have in my head where that can happen. But in the next 5-10 years, kind of like it's not something I'm thinking about. And at the same time, there's a second person that I need to get involved in the decision. She loves it back home for the 2-3 week spans that we do it. Now we'll see if we can. You do 6 months? Can you do a year? Now that's a different question. So
yeah, yeah. And you know what? When you live as well in a certain city, parang it's not like you're gonna live there as in forever din naman, right? You also hear of people na parang when they're 50, they suddenly meet the love of their lives, parang like, and then they migrate elsewhere, right? Parang you have these like classic tita stories, di ba, na parang met like fellow divorcee then, tapos parang they would elope in a faraway place, right? So it's pretty common as well in the Philippines. My next question is like we all lived in like different cities, right? What I realized is if you live in capitals, right? So whether that's Kuala Lumpur, Singapore, Jakarta, Manila, like Madrid, Paris, what have you, right? I don't know the US side of things, right? But I always felt na parang the capitals of the countries parang felt like more similar, between each other than other parts of a country, right? So parang it's almost like, yeah, you can live quote unquote abroad, pero like when you live, let's say in Jakarta, parang it's roughly the same, high urbanization and then roughly the same city living, right? City living. Parang ganun. Would you say that's that's a fair conclusion?
Well, if I try to answer, I mean, I guess the question there is what's your personality and habits? I think fundamentally your own habits doesn't necessarily change just because you're in a different country. So the day-to-day task, the mundane part of living somewhere in a year would fundamentally be the same. Like, I'm a big video game
Right.
player. Like I love playing video games. So I mean, if I'm in a country for the first time, I guess yung first month or two would be spent exploring, sightseeing, para makita ng bagong things, enjoy yung local cuisines. But then after a while, you actually will tended going like, oh well, napuntahan ko na maraming lugar, so I'll just play games. So the
Right.
day-to-day task would be similar. What would be different because of accessibility and high urbanization, yung availability of food, you'll have probably access to the stuff you like. So you'll still probably buy the same things no matter
The
where
same
you
stuff.
are.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it feels the same. While if you go, let's say, into provinces and you don't have access to like super fast internet, so good luck gaming. So baka local
Right.
games ka na lang set of multiplayer.
Right.
Or or yung food mo is more yung what available, like properly home cooked meals instead of I don't know, microwavables.
Yeah, in the same like Chinese food, right? Packed the food. How about you, Nick? How has your parang routines, or how have they changed from living, like literally living in the city of I think Parañaque, no, Nick? Living in Parañaque, and like living now in a different city. Like, would you say a lot, not a lot? Like, how was the living situation change?
Well, for one, I want to say I go out more just because of the weather. You know, Philippines versus the Northeast here. It's much cooler. You don't have to be afraid to go out because you're gonna be sweating the whole time. But um, very similar to Ranny actually. So I actually resonate with Ranny a lot. Na I'm also a big gamer, and because I came to a new city, I made sure I wanted to get all the touristy things out of the way first. So I did all the tours, basically Harvard tour, MIT tour, Freedom Trail tours, doctors, everything. And I wanted to explore everywhere first, make sure like I was in the know where I wanted to go if I had to get something. And then now that everything's normal, I've experienced everything I want to experience. I'm back to just chilling out as I would do back in the Philippines at home, Netflix, video games. So quite similar. Except I do try and take the time to go out more just because the city is really nice, and even if I've explored a lot, I'm still in awe to see like some buildings or some architecture. Yeah, and you really just get the breeze.
Yeah, so roughly the same as Ranny. How about you, Joseph? Like living in different cities, like would you say there's a fair assessment na parang if you're really not stepping out of the capital, you're like roughly experiencing the same stuff.
I agree with that 1,000%. Central Western. Well, so I've done most of my traveling / living abroad in Central Western Europe, major U.S. cities. They're all pretty much the same. Tama, yung parang big urban areas, they pretty much the same, really. Siguro pinaka-iba would be Japan, like Osaka.
Yeah.
But that's also a function of the culture. It's just really a totally different culture that you can still kind of access from afar. But and I think that's also I don't know if you'll find that exciting or not so exciting, but the idea is really people are the same everywhere. And it looks like you'll still gravitate to what you like, and you're gonna find that. And if you stay in that urban area, that you're gonna be a part of that little ecosystem then. So
yeah, I think one heartbreaking thing for me is having worked in abroad in like Philippines and like different cities and traveled a bit. Right, it's you have the same brands, man. Like there's a Starbucks, there's a McDonald's, parang there's the same Avengers trailer, na parang in a different language, right? So I think sometimes parang the question even of like parang abroad or not abroad sometimes feels almost irrelevant, like with the amount of like mobility that's afforded, for example, like people like us na parang who's willing to do the extra work to go places, right? um if you have that, parang it's a pretty small world, and like roughly parang you can go anywhere anyway, right? So parang almost the question is almost irrelevant, right? This whole abroad and not abroad thing, right? Sige. Siguro what I want to do next is since we're gonna go to the next section of our talk show, is I just want to close this section of the talk show. I want to thank everyone, our guests for joining us. But we want to end with like just a general advice for graduating students, right? So again, the show is really about just sharing some advice to that point in time na parang you're a student, you feel uncertain what's gonna happen next, right? And it would be helpful if there's people like us who could just give some advice. Sige, who wants to go first, especially ngayon, COVID, right? Joseph, you want to go?
Sure, I'll take this one. I think a very helpful way in terms of framing your mindset is tingnan niyo yung mga colleagues niyo na nasa med school, or if you know anyone in your family na naging doktor. So their process is you go through 4 more years of medical school. I don't know the right terminology. You do a residency, I think, and then eventually a fellowship. So it's pretty well defined until you kind of quote unquote make it as a doctor. I think you need to have that mindset as well in some ways. Maybe not in the same, not obviously not fully the same, but if it means taking a job for now that might not be your dream job, think of that as your residency, as your fellowship, if you will. It'll get you there eventually. And this is me speaking as like 10 years later, 10 years separated from 2010. The first set of jobs I had to take, it was hard for me to swallow. Thinking, and you got to get over yourself in terms of the mystique, the elitism that Ateneo has given you. And I really enjoyed my time there. Pero you have to really understand there are personal compromises you have to make that the group as a whole may not have to. And lastly on that, just like with any piece of advice, look at the people that's giving that advice. Try to see if you have similarities to them, because their advice will always be colored by their own experiences. And if they're not coming from the same, not necessarily background, but even mindset or set of experiences as you, their advice might not be for you. So there's a lot of noise out there. Try to find signal. Try to find the things that are really relevant, and pursue it on that end. So, and pursue aggressively. Whatever the plan is, always be aggressive about it. Like execute it to the most violent, aggressive way that you can, and you will find results.
Yep. Yeah, you always have to be like on the attack, right? Parang you have to be aggressive in pursuing the things you want to pursue, right? So yeah, that's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's good advice. Sige. How about si Ranny? You have any advice for our listeners?
Yeah, well, similar to what Joseph said, pero let me focus more on how to execute. Like, I would agree with him na kailangan i-humble mo sarili mo. Yung first couple of jobs, hindi exactly yung idea mo of the job. I guess there's 2 challenges, at least ako, when I was looking for work. It was one, the uncertainty of, is this what I'll actually enjoy? The idea is nice, but I'm not sure if it is the job that's really for me, especially when you're exploring. The second is, how do I know that this job that I'm taking might not be ideal is what will help me get to where I want? I think those are the 2 biggest struggles. And to what Joseph said, is have that structure and to tailor it to your own goals for industry or career. Look at other people who are in a job that you want, that 10 years, like very senior in the role that you think you want, and then just ask them about their journey. What are the jobs that they took that helped them? What were the skill set that they were surprised that were useful in that role that they're also dreaming? And what are the forecast that they have for that role, that the future skill sets that it will need, because they need to basically invest now if they want to be there 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line. So that will help tailor and structure while continuously reviewing what's happening in the market, or actually just evaluating from a personal perspective, is it still what you actually wanted based on your own experience? And do you pivot or do you continue? That's why, I mean, going back to my earlier advice on, make sure that you have a personal goal. May it be a lofty goal such as improving Philippines as a leader, or be it as a very selfish goal like mine, which is trying to achieve a certain lifestyle that you enjoy. Like, fast internet is a requirement, so that limits the countries. I'm sure Philippines will catch up eventually. So yes, but have that so that you have that end goal of why you're doing it and why you're pursuing certain things.
Right. So have clear goals. You have to attack. You have to execute these clear goals. You have to have role models, right? That you could ask, how they did it. You have to have role models to follow, right? So, okay, how about you, Nick?
Grabe, I think goals really is the buzzword and for me. So my advice is at least from the perspective of someone studying abroad. So my advice is very basic, but I think it can be something that's make or break. And I mentioned it previously, which is if you want to study abroad and you're considering it, why? Ask yourself why. What's the goal? What's your purpose for doing it? I think that's the more important question. What is your purpose? Why do you want to do this? Are you just studying abroad just because you have the means to do it, or because other people are doing it, or because you think it's going to be fun? I think you have to have deeper purpose. Is there an experience you want to get? Did you want to pursue a career hereafter? Did you want to learn a specific set of skills? Because then and only then I feel like once you know your purpose, that your experience will be more meaningful, and you won't regret your decision, like many that I know. So ask yourself what your goal is, and if you can achieve that by studying abroad.
All right, perfect. So you have to have a purpose and you have consistency in your goals, right? Sige. I think that's about it, for our program today. I'd like to thank Joseph, Ranny, and Nick for staying with us. Actually have a sound box. Right, sige. So thank you guys. You're welcome to stay, right? So we have some people in the call. You're welcome to stay just to have like some kwentuhan lang with the rest